Still off?
All right, and we're live. Welcome, everyone. Today is Wednesday, January 20th. Welcome to Voiced, the first ever episode, a platform for average American Muslim voices.
So what is Voiced?
Good
We're
point.
not experts, nor do we represent the millions of Muslims and billions of Muslims in the world, but we're just here to give ourselves a platform, especially in a world where especially Muslim female voices, are far and few. And our goal is to challenge the mainstream media with something.
Exactly. So every week we're going to come to you with our take on what's going on in the world in hopes that it'll give you some perspective. So the topic for today, very timely since it just happened this week, is MLK Day, Martin Luther King Day. So for most of us, MLK is this delicious 3-day weekend that eases you into life after the holidays are over. And if you're Muslim, it's the weekend everybody decides to throw their engagement parties. But what is it really? So before we get into that, Maria, what did you do on your day off?
So I did have the day off, which was pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Omer, my husband, did not have the day off, but he took the day off because he was sick. But I took the day to do some things that I've been trying to do, work on some projects that I have on the side, and just give some time to that because you don't usually on the days where you have work and other stuff. So we did that.
That's good. Good for you.
How about you?
I don't even remember what I did, which probably means I didn't do anything. I'm pretty sure I watched a movie, a lot of movies. Pretty sure it was Netflix all day. So props to you for actually doing something productive with your day. I feel like that's more in the spirit of what MLK would have wanted. So awesome. All right, so just to get into MLK Day itself a little bit, we do learn a decent amount about Martin Luther King in school, but what about the day itself? So Martin Luther King Day was signed into law by President Reagan in 1983, so not really that long ago, and kind of way after the Civil Rights Movement and Martin Luther King's assassination. So yeah, and it took effect 3 years later, but not every state adopted it until 1991, which, I mean, I was born in 92, so that's like not that long ago, which again seems crazy because it seems like it's such a, it's a part of it's a part of our lives. So coming to that, what were you taught about MLK Day in school? So if you're watching, please go ahead and tweet at us. Tweet at Maria. I think her Twitter handle's on her screen right there, with the hashtag Voice Live. Tweet at us, what were your thoughts? What were you taught about MLK Day in school? So I frankly don't remember being taught much, except for I have a dream speech, which I didn't really understand at the time. But what about you, Maria? What did you learn from school about MLK?
Probably about the same what you're saying. A lot of times, when Martin Luther King Day comes around, it is, I have a dream speech, but I think recently we've been seeing a lot more. I don't know if it's because we're older or because of social media. Mm-hmm. It's more than just, let's hold hands and, everything is good and dandy. Because if you look at it that way, a lot of people assume that the dream has been achieved.
Right.
But, the articles and conversations I see nowadays, it's more, hey, what more was there to MLK? What was more to this person we celebrate on this day? What did he really stand for?
Right.
And looking at those more controversial pieces that sometimes people don't want to look at.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more, at least to the point that we do need to think about it more. The dream has not necessarily been achieved, but that, maybe there need to be more conversations. So would you say MLK Day is still relevant then? Sounds like you would. So what do you think about this hashtag Oscars So White?
I think it's extremely relevant. I think it goes back to, what do people think that equality or the dream that Martin Luther King really had means? Does it mean just because we have a Black president that everything is good and dandy with race and race relations and racism? I don't think so, and that the hashtag right there shows it. We've been having Oscars for a while. There's been so many movies where we have, Black actors and directors, but to have none of them nominated, I mean, I think it's very I think the people have the power to boycott and use that hashtag to kind of highlight the systematic feeling that's still kind of there, even if it's people don't say it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like, for example, I was surprised, okay, not to get all nitty gritty, but I saw The Martian, which, okay, cool movie. If you saw Interstellar and Gravity, it was kind of like the same thing. Not to hate. Good movie, all right? But did Matt Damon deserve a nomination for that movie over Will Smith for Concussion? I mean, it just, that one really, that, you know, if I ever got invited to the Oscars, I think I would boycott for that, to be honest. So, yeah. But anyway, so and I think you're right to the point of, you know, that there are people that are acting, example, Will Smith and Concussion, people that are acting and not getting recognized for it. But it was really interesting. I heard this quote, it was George Clooney, I believe, who said that we're actually, it feels like we're moving backwards in ways, because you do have, you know, more people of color appearing, like more people of color entering the field, entering, you know, entertainment, yet it's becoming more and more niche. So because of how many channels we have and how many, you know, different media outlets we have, it feels like mainstream media is kind of going backwards a little bit and becoming more whitewashed in ways. Because part of the problem is that there aren't enough, you know, mainstream production houses don't create and produce enough films that have roles, substantial roles for Black actors and other people of color. So it's kind of, you know, the problem kind of starts there, I would say. But it's interesting.
I would agree. I mean, the roles, you know, a Black person doesn't want to be playing a Black person per se in every movie. You know, I think Idris Elba just said recently, like, you know, every time he would get a script, it's for somebody to play a slave or somebody to play a gangster or something that, you know, he didn't want to be representing only that, like those characters. He's a great actor. He wanted some main male roles,
Right.
and he just wasn't getting them.
Right.
And when he didn't get nominated or, you know, recognized for a lot of the work that he has done.
Exactly. Yeah, he was another, I forget, if you want to tweet this at us, I forget what movie it is that he was nominated for. I didn't watch it, unfortunately, but I heard he did excellent in it, and a lot of people were upset that he didn't get nominated. So there are a lot of people that were overlooked. So it is the case also that, you know, the roles aren't really there, but also is the case that people just don't get recognized when they do them. And I think the same thing happens to Muslims too. When Muslims, it's a growing, you know, number of people that are being depicted as like growing number of Muslims that you see on TV, Muslim characters, but usually it's all in relationship to terrorism, whether it is as a terrorist, which of course is the worst role, right? So stereotypical, or as somebody who's fighting terrorism. It all revolves around that issue, and you know, our show right now is an example of, hey, we are more than just that topic. So
Exactly.
so, okay, let's see. What else do we have here? It's interesting. I was thinking about, you know, the relationship between the Muslim community and in its struggles, and the relationship, I'm sorry, its relationship to the African American, the Black community, and its struggles, and the overlap. I mean, weren't you saying, we were talking about this earlier, you were saying that African Americans represent the largest, if not the largest, percentage of Muslims in America? I think that's what you were
Yep,
saying.
Muslim Americans. The largest, you know, one of the largest populations, I think, is 23% is African American Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, relating to how you mentioned, like, Muslims often have these characters in Hollywood, and that we always get those same kind of stereotypical characters. We have some similarities, but we also have to remember, you know, the history, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about, you know, and you look at your own mosque or your Muslim gathering or Muslim circle of friends, do you have anybody who is Black? You know, when we were talking about this topic for this talk show, we wanted to bring somebody because we don't want to speak on behalf of somebody, but we couldn't even think of somebody to invite.
Yeah, it's a wake-up call for us, honestly, because we couldn't think of an African American Muslim to come speak about this topic in, you know, in like in a personal way. I mean, and that's kind of a tragedy, I would say. I mean, that it shouldn't be like that in any community, but especially a community that really prides itself on its diversity, which I think the Muslim community really does and is very diverse, but that the problems of, you know, race are, we're not immune to those problems either. And I guess in a way that makes us similar to other communities. I don't know if that's a good thing when it comes to that, but it does make us similar. So yeah, so I guess being a minority, being a Muslim who is also, you know, undergoing a lot of trials and experiences their fair share of oppression, you know, in Western society, um, and many other minorities do as well. How, you know, it's difficult to be an ally, wouldn't you say? How do you? I mean, what do you think, Mario? Like, how does somebody kind of step up to that role when you're also experiencing something yourself?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, being Black and Muslim, that
Yeah.
would be a double whammy.
Right.
Right now, when you think about any part of your identity, for example, even being a woman, like when I hear a lot, you know, at work, sometimes I have to do like sexual assault trainings or, you know, presentations and projects. As a woman, as a Muslim woman who wears a hijab, when I'm walking down, if I was walking down the street in a dark alley for some reason, I don't, in my head, it's not like, oh, I'm a female, I'm a woman, and that's why I may be attacked. I do
Yeah.
feel scared, but I feel scared because I'm Muslim, because I'm visibly being Muslim. And that's exactly what I wonder for somebody who is Black. And, you know, what is going through your head first? You know, like, and we're already thinking all the time, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And is it
Great question,
being
especially being
on,
a woman, right? Because you're visibly right. Ah, so that'd be a great question. Hopefully, next time we do a topic like this, we can actually bring on a guest to speak to that a little more. But presumably, you know, both of those things are on your mind, and it makes things difficult. So,
and then I also wonder, you know, like, do Black Muslims feel welcomed in our larger Muslim American centers, Islamic centers, you know, groups, associations? What,
yeah,
you know?
great question. Internally, and do they get recognized as such? Because I think, I think that again, we're speaking on behalf of a group of people that aren't represented in this discussion right now. But as somebody, as an observer, let's say, as an observer, I would say that, you know, an African American in America would have an easier time being recognized for their race, or at least be more accepted as an advocate for their race than they would be in like a rally against Islamophobia. You know, it wouldn't, their voices may not be as seemingly as important there, or even if they, you know, that issue is really relevant to them, there, it's both ways within that group and as somebody who is looking onto that group, you know, do they get recognized? I'm not sure. And I think being somebody who attends a mosque, I mean, I do think, again, there is a race issue that touches every community in America. It's
Mhm.
not just, you know, it's not just white people, right? Like, let's be real, it's really easy to blame white people for everything. And I'm not saying that privilege doesn't exist, and that was a blanket statement, but the fact is that I think minorities, other minorities, do have a responsibility to be allies for each other, and at the same time, not stepping on somebody else's struggle, because struggles are different, but somehow being an ally is very difficult. I'm still struggling how to figure out how to do this because I have my problems, and that's selfish sentiment, but I feel that way. I have my problems, and I feel like sometimes I want my problems to be heard, and I feel like other problems are more organized, people more organized around them than mine. But I don't know. It's
I, I
yeah.
think we just had to realize, you know, discrimination, racism, and, you know, prejudice, it goes to everybody. And, you know, a lot of times we say, you know, we're on the same boat, right?
Yeah.
Um, not to make it against them or us, them, but we're on the same boat when we have these similar sentiments.
Mhm.
But we had to realize that everybody's in a different seat, right? Some people have the window view. Some people have the only inside view. You know, if you've ever been on a cruise, you can pay more for having a little tiny window, or you can be on the balcony, you know?
Right. Right.
So we all are on the same boat, but we all have a different view. We all have a different amount of space, and we
Yeah.
have to acknowledge that, right? I feel like a lot of times, with the South Asian background that I do have, there's some form of discrimination that I don't face. You know, people assume that, you know, my parents are well off, that, you know, socioeconomic plays a huge role. That somebody who maybe of different background doesn't face that part of it. Especially with being Black, there's so much more history, especially in America. To say that we have the same exact seat on that boat is not fair. And as Muslim Americans, we need to realize that and talk about it.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And if you have any thoughts on this, if you're watching, you have any thoughts on this, what do you think are some ways that Muslims and other, minorities, people of color can be allies to, the African Americans who have their own share of struggles and, in light of MLK Day, the dream that MLK spoke of that has not yet been actualized, how can, other people of color and Muslims be allies? It's not an easy question to answer, I think. There are definitely ways to do it. And I think, Mari, you have a really great story. So I want you to tell it right now.
Sure, yeah, I'll tell it. But we did have a tweet from Sundus Riaz. She was telling us that the movie was called Mandela: Long Walk to Freedom. So we'll have to check that out.
Thank you. Awesome.
So yeah, do keep tweeting at us if there's anything you want to tell us about what Ali just mentioned, how you can become an ally or how you are being an ally, any tips. But one thing that's recently happened in my life, I was in Atlanta for just vacation, and we know about the City Pass. You pay a discounted price for admission to different places in the city. So we got the packet, and we had admissions to the Georgia Aquarium, the CNN Tower, World of Coca-Cola, or the three we were like, for sure you already have entrance to. And then there was two option packages. So you had to pick between the College Football Hall of Fame and the Natural History Museum. And we picked the Natural History Museum, which was really cool. And then the other twist was between the Atlanta Zoo and the Civil Rights Museum.
I wonder which one you guys picked.
I truly really wanted to go to the Civil Rights Museum. So did my husband, so did my cousins who were like college age. We're like, that'd be so cool. These are things we talk about. Let's go there. But we went to the zoo because there was a lot of pressure from other members in the family not to put them down or say that, we're better than them because we're thinking that way. But just the way, their lives have been, they literally said, why would we go there? To imply kind of that we're not Black. Why does it matter? Why would we go there? Kids are going to have fun at the zoo. What are we going to do there? That's going to be boring and irrelevant to us.
Yeah. And it's so funny you said that. And that it's so funny they said that, because doesn't that echo so much of what Muslims hear too? Why should we care? Why is this relevant? So it's really funny how, people don't recognize it in themselves. And speaking as, both of us speaking as Muslims, South Asian Muslims, if we're going to be specific, but we've seen it in our communities. We've seen that we see a lot of those social justice-y types who, are always posting about their issues that are relevant to them. But when it comes to other people, that are experiencing similar, issues of being oppressed in their society, that sometimes people aren't as interested in it and don't feel like it's their space or their job to talk about and are caught up in their own problems, which is fair, but there is a way to be an ally, and there's a need, and you should be interested and you should care.
Right, so, and I think you have to start that young. I think if my 10-year-old cousin had gone to the Civil Rights Museum, he'd have more of a connection, even if it wasn't, apparent right then, right? Like I went to this Coke place, now I'm like, oh, Coca-Cola, I know how you're bottled and a little bit of your history. Or I saw all these fish at the aquarium, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, there's like 30 kinds of jellyfish. Did you know that? Little tidbits. I mean, that's exposure, and that exposure needs to happen sooner than college. It needs to happen as this is, we care about all these things that are happening because we're all human. It really does affect all of us.
Yeah,
and
I completely agree.
It has to start young.
Yeah, and about the college thing, I mean, I feel like I got really lucky that I got exposed to that in college. It was an accident, because I just ended up going to an event and I became interested in it, and it just became what I ended up doing. But a lot of people go through college not learning anything, so let's be real. So, you're right, it has to start young. It has to be and it's age appropriate, obviously. A museum is a great way. That's, again, a great way to be an ally is just to learn something, right? To keep an open mind and
Right.
to expose you to knowledge. And I think that, next time we'll both go to Atlanta and we'll both go to that museum, Maria. It'll be
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. All
All
right.
right,
So
if you guys have any questions or comments, keep tweeting at us. We just have one more little section that we're going to go through. And
yeah.
Alia, you want to
Sure.
introduce that?
So, over the course of this show, we hope to have many little segments, and hopefully invite some guests and, get things going. But we have a segment called MVP of the Week, and this week's MVP, basically, we're trying to recognize people that make the world a better place and, advocate for others and, are good representatives of Muslims and the Muslim community. And this week, I'd like to honor Linda Sarsour as our MVP of the week. This is awesome, from her Facebook. All right, this is literally taken from her Facebook. Linda Sarsour is a racial justice and civil rights activist and every Islamophobe's worst nightmare. How badass is that? So if you guys don't know who Linda Sarsour is, she's the executive director of the Arab American Association of New York, and a huge activist. And this is a quote from her on MLK Day. So she says, "I don't know what MLK you admire or you are inspired by, but I am inspired by the radical MLK. Not the whitewashed one we are taught about in our public schools, or the one some have conformed to fit their narrow-minded understanding that MLK's sole purpose was to bring whites and blacks together. MLK wasn't just a nonviolent civil rights activist, or a preacher, or a negotiator. He was a black radical revolutionary. He was a victim of police brutality many times over. He was blacklisted at many points in his activism. He was hated by many and assassinated for believing that black people were full humans who deserved full rights. I don't know what you think MLK Day is about. For me, it's another day to remember and reflect how far we are from Dr. King's dream." And that was from Linda Sarsour. And we kind of echoed that in our show today as well, that the dream has not yet been achieved, but hopefully through discussions like this, we can get there. So thank you, Ms. Sarsour, if you're watching, for being a shining example of what it means to be a Muslim, an American, and an ally. And shout out if any of you live near Ohio State, which is our alma mater, go Bucks. She will be speaking there on February 11th. So I urge you to stop by and watch her speak. She's truly amazing. So I think that wraps it up for our first show.
Yep.
Yeah. Nice job, Maria.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for joining us for our first ever episode of Voiced. There's probably a few rough spots, but we promise our audio and graphics will get more sophisticated over the next few weeks, and we will be introducing some other fun segments and guests and possibly other co-hosts and a bunch of other fun things. And if you can think of anything for us to do, please tweet at Maria with the hashtag #VoicedLive, and we will take your suggestions and try to make this the best live show ever. So Maria, why don't you take us out?
All right, so in honor of MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., we will end with a quote by him. "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." This has been Voiced. See you next week.